With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
On this episode of Into the Fray, I welcome Shawn on with me, and he is an anthropologist, and he's had a few extremely interesting encounters, really quite recently in the last few years, that we will be discussing today. Shawn, welcome on the show.
Thank you, Shannon. Glad to be here.
So, Shawn, considering the fact that we will in fact be talking about Dogman today, prior to these experiences, were you interested in stuff like this?
Yes, I've had a fascination with cryptids for many years and supernatural things as well. So I would say that I wasn't focused on Dogman. I was more just interested in the paranormal in a broader sense, which did include cryptids and included, energy vortexes and parallel universes and portals, things like that, UFOs, all of it. So it's kind of a generalist, I would guess.
Yeah, that tends to happen. You look into one and you think you're just into one, and very quickly it all kind of starts to meld together in certain ways, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It's kind of like paper dolls holding hands are all linked in together.
Mm-hmm. And as much as you want to ignore that other paper doll, they're holding hands. Sorry to say, everybody. So, all right. So, Shawn, would you like to begin with your most recent, or would you like to begin with what happened a few weeks before that? And as a precursor to this, everybody, we will be focusing on the encounter in Red Bay, Florida, a little bit more, or quite a lot more, I should say, than what he's going to talk about in West Virginia, because he was already on Dogman Encounters Radio with all of the juicy details of that one. So we're not going to revisit that one as heavily. We are going to focus on Red Bay. But Shawn, whichever one you wanted to begin with, take it away.
Okay, so I'll give you a little bit about what happened in the West Virginia encounter. That was more of over a couple of weeks, and it was in the northwestern quadrant of the state. And it was a remote area that I had a friend that had a farm up there, 100 acres, 100 plus acres. And we stayed on the property at a little house that was there, guest house. And the events that took place were kind of gradual, where they kind of built to a climax. And it was more like we didn't know what was going on. And we did know that there was people in the area that had seen things, so we had that in the back of our mind. But what took place was um, the tracks that we saw and on the property in the dirt road, which are actually very large. They were over about 5.25 to 5.5 inches long, and the width was over about 4.25 to 4.5 wide. And we got some good photos of that. And those tracks were, along a dirt road that was on the property, which also had some of those tree structures in the area, the X's and the claw marks on the trees. There's a lot of photos that were taken in the area that where we heard sounds and where the tracks are going or where the claw marks, and we got pictures of the forest, and some things were seen in the background later looking at the photos. But what happened at the actual house was over the 2 weeks, like a tapping on the outer wall of the house, which we kind of ruled it out being like a rodent. And then a couple of days later, it's a little larger, and you're like, oh, maybe it's a squirrel, a raccoon, maybe. And then it's getting too big to be a rat. And then a few days later, it's starting to get bigger than what a raccoon could make. So then it starts getting a little bit, eerie, because then you're like, okay, this is a bigger animal. and it starts making more of these knocks and thumps, and that's when we got concerned. And eventually, at the end of that 2 weeks, that's when the sighting happened. Went outside because it was big booming bangs on the wall that were really loud and really strong. And shined a flashlight, and about 60 to 70 feet away in the cow pasture, that's where I saw it. And it was, a large, like the size of between a female lion and a male lion, and probably in the 350, maybe 300 to 350 pound range. And it had like a humpback, like a hyena look, and it was dark colored, mostly like a charcoal gray, maybe some black. But that was that situation there, and it kind of all built up toward the end of it. The one in Red Bay was a few weeks later, and we're doing cultural resource management, and that's going out and looking for artifacts, and you take soil samples sometimes, and you look at the color and consistency of the soil, and you do these shovel pits throughout the property, which are 30 to 50 meters apart. But the situation that took place is we get to this area, this it's not even a town, it's more like I guess a village, but it's in Northwest Florida, and it's very remote. It's surrounded by thousands of acres of wilderness and rivers, and the property was long and dense vegetation. We parked out there by the neighborhood road to access it through a small opening that was part of the property, and which opened up into many, many acres that went back several football fields in length, or maybe 900 to 1,000 feet to the middle of the property. uh, and we got all of our work done through most of the day. And as we're heading back, we noticed things like spare scat that was actually visible on the path that we were using. And so that was something that had the back of my mind that, hey, there could be something out here. The the eeriness of it was what was a little bit overwhelming, because the forest got quiet. It was a little noisier with bugs and some bird chirps and stuff, but it did get really silent for a while. And the buzzards flying around also had me a little concerned, because of there was probably about 5 or 6 of them kept following us. Where we went, the buzzards were going, so I kept an eye on that. And we noticed a tree structure type where there's trees that were bent and snapped over and had like a branch or two leaning up against the broken branch. And also there was tall grass right around the swamp and the marsh area, which was a little bit more uplands. And some of it was matted down. Like, I assume maybe deer were sleeping on it, but then, thinking about the bear scat, or what I thought was that, I always had in the back of my mind it could be a cryptid, but I didn't really have a whole lot of, strong evidence that there was, something there that was actually a cryptid at that point. I just was trying to stay aware. And so me and the field technician that was with me we were doing our job, and getting it done, and heading back on the last maybe 20% of the job, or 15%. We're almost complete, and we're maybe like 1,000 feet from the road in the forest, and we're looking toward us, the swampy area, and there's these car-sized little pockets of water that are probably like 4 to 6 feet deep, and there's several of them. And then there's like little streams that are trickling into these, some of these pockets of water, these pools. And the cypress trees are out there, and there's like a kind of a swamp meets a low and wet area, which is not quite a swamp. And so we're walking around the uplands and looking toward the pockets of pools of water, and we're maybe 60 feet away or so. And I noticed something that looks off about this tree. And it was almost like a translucent, out of focus type elliptical image that looked like it stood out from the tree, but it looked more natural, like it was part of the tree, and it still had the color of the tree, but it what was different about it is it moved. I saw what looked like a head, but I couldn't make it out clearly, and then it just dropped down. It dropped straight down into the pool of water, and when it hit the water, it like was under the water, and the hump came up out of the water, and the hump, or it looked like a big fur, like a mound of fur, and it just started moving toward the embankment that was getting closer to us. And I knew when I saw that it was a dog man, because I'd seen images of that hump of fur that was behind the head, that was kind of like a mane, and it was a black charcoal gray with some brown mixed in. And that was the color of the tree. It almost blended in with the tree like the predator in the movies, but it actually wasn't so, like, I guess, blurry looking. It was more just like a really still and matched up with the tree colors. And when it was in the water, it kind of moves really slow. And then an arm came out and grabbed like a cypress knee and pulled it forward. And that's when I said, "Get out of here. We got to go, run," you know? So the assistant that was with me was a little closer to this creature. And we both turned around and we hightailed it out of there. And we're lugging backpacks, shovels, and screens, and we're trying to get out of the area. And we're getting out of this swampy area to like the more upland areas where it's just the grass, and then there's little pockets of trees. And we didn't know where this thing was behind us. All we were kind of panicking, and some of the stuff we're dropping and picking up, and trying to haul it out and get into the tall grassy area. And we're probably like 600 to 700 feet away from where the vehicle is parked at, in a really rural neighborhood. We're in a one house for every few acres or so. And then we can hear some dogs barking in the distance. We know we're getting closer to the neighborhood. And once we kind of get out of the tall grass and we get back to where we can kind of see the vehicles, the our vehicle in a distance, we feel a little more secure. And we had another shovel pit to do. And I didn't want to do it. The assistant didn't want to do it. We're still panicking. We're kind of like out of breath. The equipment is like, we're carrying it still. And so we had to get this last pit done for the job. And we're kind of close enough where we feel like, hey, we're close to the houses and the dogs. So we feel a little bit better about it. And then we're talking to each other about what we saw to see if we saw the same thing. And that's pretty much matched up in description. And this creature that we saw, we didn't see the head to say what it looked like, but we did see that it was bipedal, dropped down in the water. Then it swam and had the hump of fur behind its head. And then the arm that reached out to grab the cypress tree knee that had like fingers. And so that's what we saw. So that's pretty much what we described each other. And so we knew it wasn't a natural animal, period. There was something, supernatural. It was cryptid, or something else. But when we started to do that last shovel pit dig, and we could still see the neighborhood and our vehicle pretty much in the distance, pretty far though, 500-600 feet away. But that's when the assistant saw the grass being kind of thrown back and forth, like maybe like arms are behind it, moving it back and forth, kind of like a scare tactic or something. But I didn't see it, and I panicked, jumped, and because she was like, "There's something in the grass. There's something right there. It's over there." He's like, "We got to get out of here." And so it was just moving it around, and so I bolted with the stuff and took off about 40, 50 feet and ran. And she ran and she pulled out her sidearm, and she said it stopped. It quit. The grass quit moving when she pulled her sidearm out on it. And we go out there with machetes, we got shovels, all that. But when she did that, it quit moving. And we were backing away after that from that area, and we started hearing these little hoots and like the chirps, but they didn't sound, they were off. They sounded a little bit artificial. Like they sounded like a bird, but not quite the actual bird sound. There was something off about it. And then there was another one further off in the woods that responded back immediately, like within just a few seconds. So it was like we were getting triangulated on by whatever this was. And we just packed up and got out of there. I mean, that was just too much. It was adrenaline pumping, falling down several times on equipment, getting scraped up, panicking, and you're getting into this situation where you could pretty much get hurt falling on your equipment when you got machetes and shovels and screens that have frayed wires on them and stuff, and just it's all kind of clumsy when you're running around with that stuff. It's just it's difficult. And we had enough, and we got out of we left. We just pretty much got out of that area. And we did what we did our got the pretty much the work done. And we had to pack up and go, and it was pretty intense at the end because we definitely knew there was something there making hoots and bird chirps from that tall tree, and something responded, about 100 feet away from that area. So that's that story, and it was pretty much, it felt like a chase, like um, something was stalking us, and we're basically ran a city block out of the forest away from it. And it almost felt like it was either toying around with us or if it was hunting us. I'm not sure.
That is quite the experience, Shawn, I have to say. Holy smokes. I don't blame you guys for being like, okay, time to go. So, questions, obviously. The assistant, what did she say about this experience? I mean, did she know about Dogman? Was she into cryptids? Was she able to go, oh, there's something just like you by that tree, and then you both saw each aspect of
Both
this
saw
thing?
by the tree. Yes, we both saw by the tree. We both saw the hump of fur in the water that was moving, kind of like it was almost like floating, but
Mm-hmm.
it it's like it went underwater, the most of the body, and even the head, and it was trying not to be noticed, and it reached forward with the arm, and the shoulder came out of the water, and then like the forearm, but like the elbow was like mostly under the water, but the hand was above water grabbing a cypress knee.
What I find interesting most about that, beyond just the fact that it was there and, you're seeing all of these things, obviously, is the fact that it goes from essentially, and we'll use the C word here, cloaked, right? It was cloaking. People don't like that word, but people do see that. It went from trying to essentially not be seen to thinking it was out of sight in the water. So then you could actually see the fur and the hair and the skin or whatever as it's underwater because I guess it thought it was covered enough, right?
Right, there was at least a foot high of the hump sticking above the water, and it was probably about 3 feet long.
Yeah, and that whole part you could see as if it was a natural, normal animal with fur and skin and all
Right.
these other things.
Yes, it was very visible that you could tell it was fur, and
Wow.
you could see that it was a natural looking animal, right? But when it was bipedally standing up next to the tree, it had more of like a electrical. I don't know. I'm not. It didn't look. No, it did definitely didn't look the same. It was so so well camouflaged next to the tree that I barely noticed it. The only reason I noticed it is because there was a little twitch up by the head. It, and I saw that movement and I said, "Hold on there, something's off." And then it dropped straight down in the water right then. As soon as I saw like an ear or the head move, it dropped down in the water, straight down, and it was just instant.
So, what did the assistant say about this?
That we both saw the same thing, that we described it like the way I described it. It was
But I mean, did she even have any
we were both
prior knowledge
we
about
were
this before? I mean, you did, but what about her?
yes, the she's also into
Okay.
paranormal and different cryptids and stuff.
Okay. All right. So, the neighbors in the area, are they open to talking about strange
I
things?
I have no idea. I didn't talk to any neighbors. I didn't, those houses there in the area, but they're pretty much spaced out, one every, couple hundred, 300 feet down the road. It's a
So,
very rural. Yeah.
yeah, and the hoots and chirps are extremely interesting because it's again just like a Bigfoot would do. You're kind of going, well, I know you're trying to sound like a bird or an owl or whatever it is, but you're not quite there, dude. Like you're kind of messing it up.
Right. I definitely caught on to because it was coming. It was like dead silent, right? There was like the birds and the animal noises and the bugs went quiet. And then that one sound that was made from the tall grass area was a little bit artificial sounding to me. It may have sounded real to someone else, but I'm in the woods all the time, so I, knew something's off with it.
So, zipping back to West Virginia just for a moment, because you mentioned that things got very quiet in Florida before all this went down. Did the same thing happen in West Virginia?
Well, that was different because we're indoors when a lot of this noise is happening coming from the outside of the house
Right.
or the mobile home. And so when I do go outside, it's only for seconds,
Okay. Right. And
with
at
a
that point, you're
flashlight.
not even thinking of that.
Yeah, and I have a flashlight and I shine it toward the direction of where the house is being banged on, and that's when I see it. And then I'm back in the house in like, a second. So it's like totally different situations
Yeah.
where one was actually we're deep in the woods and then the other one we're in a house.
Did you see the one in West Virginia bipedally or was it on all fours?
It was on all fours and it was intimidatingly big. It's like I said, between a female lion to a male lion in
Mm-hmm.
size.
That would be extremely intimidating, especially if you're out and you said this was like a 100-acre ranch, right? With nothing else around. You're kind of going, we could be
Well,
in
it
trouble
had
here.
my friend's place was about a block away on the property, and then I'm at the other house, and then the other neighbors are maybe several hundred feet down the road. It from the edge of that property, so maybe a good block away.
So you and I brought this up prior to our officially starting to record, but I wanted to ask you while, we're on the actual show, is the fact that you hadn't really had any cryptid experiences prior to these two, and these two being weeks apart in and of itself is extremely strange. Do you have any thoughts on why these two things occurred when they did?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have that answer. All I know is that they happened like in this one was in October and one was in November.
So,
So,
Shawn, I mean, you're an anthropologist and you work in these fields. What in the world do you think these things are?
well, some people believe they've been around for thousands and thousands of years, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. We don't know if they are genetic, you know, creations of extraterrestrials, or if they are just a creature that's from Earth that's been kind of hidden and stays elusive, that has, maybe some extreme camouflaging abilities. I mean, like chameleons do, and the octopus can shapeshift and look like a crab and sneak up on a crab and get it. You know, so I mean, so many possibilities with this. I mean, they go these bipedal dog. Are they related to cynocephaly, or uh, something to do with Anubis, or are they all part of the old werewolf stories? You know, ancient cultures and bipedal canines, being representative in glyphs around the world. I mean, are they all connected somehow? I mean, perhaps.
Did you or your assistant get a sense of evil from it at all?
Well, okay, the one in West Virginia, it looked right at me, and I saw the amber eyes, and I had a flashlight on it, and I don't know if I got a sense of evil or if I was just so scared that same difference. But the one in Florida, now that one felt more like you was being like hunted or stalked, because if why is it trying to be so secretive and cloak and or camouflage? It reminds of a jaguar in the jungles trying to, sneak up on a wild boar or something.
So,
It's
Shawn,
just that
sorry, go ahead.
it's just that one was more of a chase. And we had a lot of stuff to lug out of the forest, and we're not able to run that fast. And you had the whole time you had the feeling that you're done. It's going to get you.
So, Shawn, you did send along quite a number of photos to me, right? You emailed me pretty incredible photos. Some of them, yeah, they can be a little hard to make out. Others, I can see what looks like essentially an Anubis dog head in the woods. What that is doing there, who knows, right? But you captured them. Can
Right.
we discuss a few of these photos that you sent along to me? And I know that most of them have nothing to do with the Red Bay, Florida encounter, but
Right.
regardless of
Right.
that, people, they will look forward to seeing these photos. So let's talk a little bit about those.
Okay. So basically, those are photos that were taken in West Virginia when we were out in the forest and we were seeing some of the tree structures normally associated with Sasquatch, but those were in the area. And when you hear a stick snap or something make a noise in the woods, and you just take a photo with your phone in that direction, and a lot of those things were captured because of that, because of a sound in the woods. You'd aim the phone and snap a photo.
Yeah, so describe with some of the photos what are in some of these photos, at least that stands out most to
Well,
you.
some of them you see like a Doberman Pinscher type, what would be like a black dog or hellhound or something. You see some of those type of faces, and then you see some other ones that are more, the dog man look to it, but they're kind of like hidden in a way where they're angled, where you see like part of an ear behind a branch and a part of another ear that's, on the other side of a leaf that's closer up in the photo, and then you see a snout and you can see the eyes, and it's almost like it's somewhat camouflage, but yet you can still see it and tell that it is a canine type of face. And these These are the type of photos that we'd get in that particular area of West Virginia on that 100 acres. And we got some canine tracks too that were pretty big, and one of them had, if you look at it, has a fifth appendage claw mark that is not supposed to be there.
Yeah,
It
you.
almost like
Sorry, I stepped on what you said. Go ahead.
if you look at it, you can see it. It's not like a handprint, like a raccoon type of hand, but it's like a canine track, but it does have like a fifth claw. It's kind of pretty big and it's a little bit odd looking.
Yeah, very odd and extremely distinct. So if anybody wants to see those photos, head to intothefrayradio.com and go to this episode and it will be in the show notes. Now, Shawn, last question for you. You've already seen two of these things. Do you want to see a third?
Absolutely not. I mean, I don't think they're up to any good because anything that tries to stalk you or sneak up on you, apparently it's got other plans. I mean, I would, it kind of just reminds me of a jaguar sneaking up on a wild boar in the jungle and they just stalk them and then they pounce on them.
I mean, the unfortunate thing is that you do this for a living, right? I mean, this is your career. So you can't just be like, "Hey, put me behind a desk." Probably that wouldn't be what would happen.
Right. So I'm always keeping my head on a swivel when I'm in the woods. And I do pay attention to buzzards and vultures, things like that, because they can smell the blood and the rot. And if predatory animals have blood on them or any type of, or they're eating an animal, I'm sure the buzzards hone in on that and they kind of let you know where all that's going on. So I pay attention to that and also the insects and the other animals in the forest when they go quiet. That kind of gets me a little bit nervous, you know. But I try to just be very cautious. I'm not gonna panic every time I go out because I gotta get the work done. So I just stay alert and keep my head on a swivel, like I said.
Well, I guess at least the last couple of years you've been in the clear so far, right? So so far so good.
Well, yeah, but I'm still seeing the tree structures that are associated with squash a lot, and I see tree breaks like fresh pine trees, saplings as big around as like say fence post, uh, and they're just snapped at like 6 or 7 feet high, and it still has the green pines on it. Like there's no reason for it to be snapped in half. Like there's no other trees around there snapped, and there's like no windstorm damage because you'd see lots of trees blown in. I see that, and you see other ones that have like just like someone hit it with a baseball bat on the side of the tree and just put a big bludgeoned a dent in the tree. So
Do you normally go out armed? Because you mentioned your assistant, she pulled out her sidearm, which who could blame her? Do you normally go out either A,
well, we
alone
go
or
out
B, armed?
together. We go out together. Yes and no. Sometimes the properties are surrounded by neighborhoods, and the bigger ones that are deep into these thousands of acres of forest. Yes, those are more concerning. But the majority of the ones that are like closer into like towns and stuff, nah. It's just that those you can hear the cars all around, and you could hear the honking and
Right.
the neighborhood dogs. But it's just those remote areas that are out next to state parks or national forest and or just thousands of acres of wilderness. Those are the ones that have me a little bit more concerned.
Well, and of course the thing is you're out there doing your jobs essentially and you're carrying a sidearm for the known scary animals that are proven and then you run into these things, right?
Right. And the thing is that those two events that happened they were so close together that I wonder if there was a connection because I've heard about cryptids following people, but I don't know if that's true or not. But I've heard people talk about it. But that's the only time where sightings actually took place is those were back to back. So makes me wonder about it.
Well, and if they are paranormal, which they would have to be if they're capable of doing these types of things, who's to say what fully they are capable of, right? I mean, for us to go to West Virginia to Florida is quite the trek, but maybe not for them if they have other means.
Right, exactly. That's where I don't think they're just a biological creature that where people say, "Oh, it's just a biological creature," and they end it with that. Like, how do you know it's just a biological creature and that's it? Maybe it's a little bit enhanced, you know?
And Shawn, if you don't want to answer this, I totally understand, but I'm just trying to get, step back to forest for the trees, if you will. Was there anything going on in your life? And again, you don't have to be specific, or maybe it's just a no, but was there anything going on in your personal life around those, that month that would maybe attract something like this to you?
No, not that I know recall. I mean, but
Yeah.
I've had other paranormal experiences in my life that were more definitely not cryptids though. But I've had as a child I saw looked like a shadow creature come out of the wall. But me and my cousin did, and it had a kind of a like a coyote look to it,
Mm,
and that was like 6 years old. So that's what we told our parents. My parents at that time, and that was probably the first time, and that was in a rural area too. So I don't know if it's all connected or if there's I've heard of like paranormal attachments to bloodlines and to lineages and all that, but
right.
I don't know.
Right. Right. I mean, it's all just conjecture, right? It's all we can do is just guess
Right.
as to what's going on. Well,
Yeah.
Shawn, thank you so much for coming on to share these experiences, especially that one out of Red Bay. We've been waiting to, or at least I've been like chomping at the bit, pun intended, I guess, to talk to you about this. So thanks for being patient with
But
the technical difficulties.
yeah, that one felt the Red Bay one felt like we're being hunted for sure.
Yeah. So for anybody that's like, oh, it's like the whole be careful what you wish for, right? You said you were into this stuff. And then, I mean, not that I'm saying you wanted these exact things to go down, but that one, especially when she felt like she had to pull her sidearm, it should, I would imagine, take a lot for her to want to do that. So that would be a very scary situation. And that to have to drag all your gear while you're trying to run out of there because you feel like you're being stalked, that's not fun at all.
No, we're like literally falling down on our gear and running like 30 feet, falling down, running 30 feet, falling down. And we're falling down in tall grass that's like 5 feet tall. And then you're thinking like, the savannah, like Africa, where a lion will just jump
Yeah, it
out
could be
on
right
you and you
there.
don't even
Yeah,
you
you
know?
don't even know. Especially you've already seen one the weeks prior that was on all fours, so you're like, "Oh, well, is
Mm,
it right next to me?" Right?
right, exactly. That's the whole a lot of it's in your mind. You're panicking and you're
Mhm.
drawing these conclusions and scenarios that could happen that are making you more afraid.
Well, Shawn, thank you so much. I really truly appreciate it, and keep me in the loop if anything else goes down, will you?
Okay, I sure will. Thank you for having me on your show.
Before I cue Electus, first of all, thank you for tuning in for another episode. If you are so inclined and you like Into the Fray enough, you can partake in the new and upcoming bonus content over on Patreon or Apple Podcast Premium. First up, we've got Frayed Tales Volume 6, which included many creepy encounters in and out of doors. Upcoming Frayed News, where we live chat about the biggest chin waggers in the paranormal slash UFO slash cryptid world. Another episode of Return to the Fray, which will feature Randy of episode 355. And yes, he has new experiences to share. And last but not least, soon to come, a new episode of Unraveled. I will speak to Tony Wright about his deep dive into the very strange disappearance of 5 young men in Yuba County, California. They are now known as the Yuba County Five. You can instantly gain access to all of the past episodes and be ready for upcoming bonus content by heading to patreon.com/intothefray or by subscribing to ITF Premium in your Apple Podcasts app. New patrons over at patreon.com: Dave Baxter, Diego Bribiesca, Alicia Cook, Allison Wright, Jim P., Jesse Davis, and Heather M. As always, you can follow me on the big 3 social media outlets: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also find me at intothefrayradio.com, and if you want to share your encounter or encounters, send me an email, shannon@intothefrayradio.com.